Hello everybody, this is Connor, BoatsDon'tSink, here with another deck profile for you. Today we are going to be talking about Tokyo Revengers once again. Last time I showed off the 12 standby deck. This time we're going to be talking about an 8 gate trigger deck. Once again, our icon here is Mikey turning, looking over his shoulder with his eyes closed, just in the opposite direction this time. As usual, before I get into the cards, we'll take a look at the deck list as a whole. You can see this deck is a little different from some of the other ones we've talked about. So we're playing 3 different Climaxes. We have a split between 2 different Climax combos at level 3. And all of our Climaxes are gate triggers, of course. So we're going to be able to get a lot of Climaxes into our hand throughout the game. And as a result, we're going to be focusing on optimizing our Climax combos here so that we can use them a lot and get good value out of them, as well as pushing soul damage throughout the game, so that we're hopefully sort of an aggressive deck that can build resources and then end a game efficiently. So, as I said, we're playing 3 Climax combos. Taking a look at those 3, we have one level 1 combo, Founding Member Mikey, and then 2 different level 3 combos. Take Good Care of Her Mikey is from the trial deck, and Our Everything Baji is a rare from the set. None of these Climax combos are double rares, so I think as a whole this deck is probably pretty budget friendly, outside of one healer that I don't think is particularly mandatory. But looking at what these do, Mikey is kind of unique as a Climax combo. Some of you that have played, I believe, Bang Dream's Poppin' Party Roselia extra booster has a... is it a Rinko with a similar combo, I believe? So, on play, you can give a character 1500 power. He can pump himself, so he can just be a 5500 vanilla stat line, or you can pump all the power into the same lane to get over one higher power lane. It's kind of good against like standby decks. If you hit level 1 first, but they manage to standby out a 1/1, you can still just put all your power in one lane to reverse it. Or, you know, against any 1k1 deck or whatever, say you're playing against Coronet Marine Hololive or whatever, like you can just spread your power and reverse all your opponent's lanes. So the 1500 is not irrelevant. Later in the game, you can also use it to pump things like level 3 killers just for extra power. The Climax combo itself is beginning of Encore step. If this card is in your center stage, your hand has 5 or less cards, and all of your characters are revenge. You may pay the cost, which is revealing 1 copy of himself from your hand and putting it into stock, and then putting 1 copy of the Climax from your Climax area into your waiting room. So you can only resolve 1 copy of this per turn, since you have to sack the Climax. If you do, look at up to 4 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 4 revenge characters from among them, reveal them, put them in your hand, and put the rest in your waiting room. So we don't have to reverse. All we have to do is make it to Encore step and have 5 or less hand. And then we get up to potentially 4 hand off of this, meaning one resolution of the combo can potentially fully refill our hand, which is pretty much what we're going for here, is just to do 1 copy of this combo on multiple turns. You do have to put a copy of himself from hand into stock, so you do need multiple copies. You cannot resolve this with just 1 copy. You'll need at least 2, so you can play 1 and put 1 into stock. So a lot of this deck is built around keeping 1 alive on board, and then being able to constantly get a second copy to keep using the combo. Since we are just grabbing like the top 4 cards of our deck, we also have a lot of hand fix options to hopefully turn those 4 random cards into cards that we have more use for. Our first level 3 combo is Take Good Care of Her Mikey. It's a 3/2 from the trial deck. On play, you can put 1 character, revenge character from your hand into your waiting room to put the top card of your clock into your hand. Not the best hand fixing since you don't really have any selection, but it is a heal and it does get around anti-heal if that ever becomes relevant. So he's just a healer. We do like having a lot of healers in this deck so that we can opt to play for a low resource sort of defensive game or play for a higher resource explosive finish, just depending on which situation fits us better. Since we have the 8 gate triggers, we get some option in which Climax we have in our hand, hopefully. The Climax combo is just on attack. If the Climax is in play, put the bottom 4 cards of your opponent's deck into their waiting room, deal X damage to your opponent. X is equal to the number of Climax among those cards. This is just a standard Icy Tail effect. In general, it's not a particularly powerful finisher, but it costs nothing, and against compressed deck states, it's not unreasonable that you're dealing 1 or 2 damage off of this, and removing climaxes and deck size from your opponent's deck. If you're removing enough cards by playing multiples of these, you can force a refresh point on an opponent that wouldn't otherwise, which is essentially an additional uncancelable 1 damage, which can help your finisher turn quite a bit. If your opponent's at 3-0, and you have refresh point, you only need 6 damage, and these are swinging for 3 each, so if 2 of them stick an attack, or if 1 sticks an attack and say 2 of your burns hit, you do have some pretty reasonable numbers to finish an opponent off. Our last option is for the objectively more explosive finish, where you have more range and just better damage numbers overall at a much higher resource cost. Our everything Baji is on play from hand. You can pay 1 to choose a climax in your waiting room and return it to your hand. This means that you'll always be able to get his climax, or, if you're playing the Mikey because your opponent has a deck state that is favorable for it, or you just don't have enough stock to reasonably do a Baji finish, you can add the Mikey climax to your hand as well. It doesn't matter which one you add. Sometimes if you have a lot of stock and not much hand, you might just pay the 1 to grab a climax so you can discard it for his cost later. His climax combo is, at the end of this card's attack, you may pay 8 stock, put 3 cards from your hand into your waiting room, and put 4 other characters from your stage face up in any order underneath this card as markers, and put 1 we'll entrust our everything to you, which is the climax, from your climax area into your waiting room. At the end of this card's attack, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose 1 Kids Meal Mikey in your waiting room, put it on the stage position this card was on, and put this card and all markers underneath this card face up underneath that Kids Meal Mikey in any order as markers. That's a fair number of words. Kids Meal Mikey's a yellow level 3. Basically, we're just pay 8, ditch 3, sack the climax, summon Mikey from waiting room, and our whole board goes under him as markers, and we have to have a full board. Mikey himself, for a little bit of context, is a 3-2 with on attack. You send all markers under him to the bottom of your deck and deal 1 X times. So in this case, where we have the Baji and our 4 other characters under him as markers, he's going to on attack deal 1 5 times, which is an absolute just ton of damage. And this is after we've already attacked 3 times, and the Mikey himself is getting an attack. So it's 4 regular attacks and 5 burn 1s. If you have extra Mikeys that you can play from hand, they also get a marker on play from hand, so you can get additional burns on top of that even, which is just an absolute ton of damage. It can kill people from pretty far out without a whole lot of trouble. So in the games where we have enough stock, which, to do this, for reference, you need to go into your attack phase with 5 stock, since you'll attack 3 times to go up to 8. You also have to be able to dodge anything like memory kick counters, rest counters that could stop the Baji himself from attacking, etc. So, not every game you're going to be able to go for this. But games where you hit level 3 and, say, have 8 stock going into level 3, even if you just attack with 2 one-soul characters, like level 0s, and play the Baji and pay the 1 to get the climax, so you go from 8 to 5, you can do the combo, and that's a lot of damage. So it's not an unreasonable amount of stock, but you do have to be ready for it. Ideally, since our level 1 combo generates extra stock by putting a copy of itself into stock every time it does the combo, we'll have a high enough resource count to do this when we need it. And now, since we are focusing so heavily on our Climax combos, especially our level 1 combo throughout the game, we have a fair number of cards that are specifically really support our Climax combos. First off is Bodyguard Squad Mitsuya. Beginning of your opponent's attack phase, you can discard a card to choose one of your other characters, put it face up underneath Mitsuya as a marker. And at the beginning of your next draw phase, you choose the marker and put it back on your stage. This lets us keep our Mikey that we're comboing with alive across multiple turns, because we can combo with it, and then on opponent's turn, discard one of the random cards that we got off of his combo to save him. It's essentially character encore, but it gives your opponent a direct attack. And then he'll come back at draw phase so that we can do the combo again, as long as we've gotten the climax and another copy of the 1-0. The second effect is pay 1, rest this card, reveal the top card of your deck. If that card has Soul Trigger in its trigger icon, put it into your hand. So this is just pay 1, rest, maybe draw a card. It's not the best effect, but we do have, I believe, 23 Soul Triggers in this deck, which is almost half of our deck, including all of our Climaxes. So as the game goes on and we get more compressed, this is more and more likely to hit. But it's probably not something we're going to be using super often, because we do need 5 or less hand for our combo to resolve. You might be using this, say, on your finisher turn if you need extra hand alongside, like, a Baji finish or something. Or if you just want extra hand and have the stock at level 2 and 3, after you're done sort of resolving your combo a lot. But yeah, this is mainly here to give pseudo hand encore. This is any card, so we can discard an extra Climax that gets stuck in our hand with 8 gates as well. So it's just pseudo hand encore for a level 1 combo. But can also be used for, say, our early plays or our level 3 killer or anything like that as well. It's especially valuable to save stock-costed characters with this, since you are getting more value out of that stock that you spent. Our second support card is Draken and Mitsuya. This is another level 0, global 500 to all your revenge characters. And when your character trigger checks a gate trigger, you can discard 1 card, look it up to 2 from the top of your deck, choose 1, put it in your hand, put the rest in waiting room. Again, 8 gate triggers can get Climaxes stuck in your hand fairly frequently, so this gives us a way to discard extra Climaxes. In addition, across multiple turns, if we have added a bunch of particularly useless cards to our hand off of the Mikey combo, we can discard those to this to try to get better cards into our hand off the top 2. If we don't want to discard, say, the Climax that we're adding, we can, you know, get the Climax to hand that we want to play next turn, and then discard a dead card to hopefully get something better. This card is, I think, what you want in your back row after the previous Mitsuya. Once you're sort of done looping your level 1 combo, you can put this, or ideally you have 1 of each. I don't think we particularly need a Brainstorm in our backstage most of the game, since we do have a lot of other mill options. Our level 1 combo mills 4 cards, this mills 2, we have a level 1 that mills 3 that we're about to look at, etc. So, or mills 4, I'm sorry. So we have a lot of ways to get through our deck. Founding Member Draken is a 1/0. This is basically an Azusa or Akatsuki profile. On play, you reveal, or you discard 1, and then you reveal the level 3 trial deck Mikey from your hand to look at up to 4 cards from the top of your deck. Choose a revenge character, reveal it, put it in hand, put the rest in waiting room. This is a slightly higher cost on the Azusa effect than cards normally get, for, I suppose, 500 extra power on the card, and just as a balancing mechanism, since Bushiroad has taken the stance, it seems, that it is too powerful of an effect just to print on cards for free. And I tend to agree. I think the check top 4 add a character, just ditch 1, check top 4 add a character, is a really strong effect, and is probably a bit overtuned. So this deck, we're playing 4 copies of the trial deck Mikey, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get 1 into your hand. And this just lets you discard whatever, as I've said, garbage you're getting off your check top 4, and dig for better cards to set up your hand. And 5k is not a like, bad power line either. You know, with a global and a Climax, you're attacking for 6,500. Your level 1 combo can pump at 15 to go to 8k, which, you know, that gets over 1175s. So I don't think this card's power lines are particularly bad at all, once you get down to it. Next, we have Founding Member Pah-chin. This might seem weird as a card that supports our Climax combos, but I like it for one main reason. On play from hand, you can put a card from your hand into your stock. We do need 5 or less hand to resolve our combo, so on turns where we hit really good pluses, or say hit a Brainstorm and get a bunch of cards, or if we just, for some reason, have cards survive because our opponent can't reverse them. I'm not sure when that's really going to happen with this deck. Our power lines are pretty low, but you know, sometimes you're just going to have too many cards in hand. Especially, you know, you start the turn with, say, 7 cards in hand because you refilled your hand last turn, you draw to 8, and then if you only have to play, like, 2 characters, you're down to 6. I guess if you play the Climax at that point, you go to 5, but if you trigger a Climax, you still can't add anything off of it. So this lets us, you know, sort of force ourselves down to 5 or 4 cards in hand to get more value out of our Climax combo, and also give us stock at the same time. So it's not always, you know, I'm only playing one copy of this card. It's not always this is going to come up, but it does let us sort of manipulate our hand size without losing resources. It's also a level 0 bottom deck bomb, which isn't, or I'm sorry, not level 0, cost 0 bottom deck bomb, which isn't the best thing right now. Against Slime, it does still beat Shizu, but most other decks aren't playing level 1s, or that are really going to matter for this. Level 0s, you're probably just reversing anyway, because you're 2500 power, so you're not going to get to remove them. But it does remove Shizu. Against Hololive, it can remove the Miko 1-0 Clock Encore, so that they can't use their Clock Encore to loop it and force themselves to level 2. But most other matchups, that text isn't going to be super relevant. It might just be, you know, mildly annoying. And lastly, the Kids Meal Baji, Kids Meal Mikey that combos with our Baji that we looked at earlier. On play from hand, choose a revenge character in waiting room, put it face down underneath this card as a marker, so it's always going to have at least one marker on play. On attack, put all markers underneath this to the bottom of your deck in any order. If you do, deal 1 damage X times, equal to the number of markers you put. And beginning of the Encore step, if you don't have another rest character in your center stage, you can pay 1 to rest it, which means after you do your big explosive Baji turn, if for some reason your opponent lives and can't kill you, you can just pay your 1 stock, that you're going to have at least 1 stock, to save this guy, so you have an attacker on your following turn. Alternatively, if you just play this guy as a sort of supplemental off-climax finisher alongside the Icy Tail combo, and your opponent lives and wipes your board, you can also just pay 1 to save this guy as a 2-soul attacker following that, which is pretty good. That effect isn't the most relevant part of the card, but, you know, mainly playing it for the burns. We're playing it because it works with the Baji combo, and we're playing it because, you know, with the Idiot combo, we can just play healers and this, and get burn 1s on attack, which is still reasonable. Still not bad. Now for some more utility cards that aren't directly tied to our combos, but are just consistency in general. We play 4 I'll Protect You Hinata. This is the Ricky from the trial deck. Just on play, pay 1, clock 1, search a level 1 or lower character. This can set up our back row, and this can set up having multiple copies of our level 1 combo to actually resolve it. Both very important things. On play, you can shuffle 2 characters from waiting room back to deck to gain 2k. Less important, but can maybe help you kill one of your opponent's characters at level 0, especially if you have the Global 500 already in play or search it. So not an irrelevant effect, but not something we're going to be abusing in this deck like we were in the 12 standby deck. Our other plussing level 0 of choice is My Treasure Baji. I've come to really like this card. During your opponent's turn, when this card becomes reversed in battle, you can pay 1 to rest it, and beginning of next Encore step, send it to memory. So it is just pay 1 to plus and get an extra attack out of it, which lets us maintain aggression, since we're always going to get an attacker back. And act, pay 1, put this card into waiting room, look at top 4, choose a revenge character, put it in hand, put the rest in waiting room. Meaning this is also a stock out and sort of hand fix and deck control that doesn't take up a slot on our board necessarily, because we can just play it, sack it, replace it from top of deck. And I think that's pretty valuable because a lot of decks later in the game might want deck control but not want to have to field a bad character to do it, or minus by overplaying that weak character. This just replaces himself back to hand. He does cost a stock, but again, we're not a super stock heavy deck, especially since our early play only costs 1 stock. And our level 1 combo generates additional stock for us. So I think this card is really good, really important just at being good throughout the entire game. Plussing 0 early and then utility later. We're playing 1 Climax Swapper. I don't think this has really a whole lot else to say about it. It's just Climax Swapper. We are playing 8 gates, which means we have more control over our climaxes than most decks, but that doesn't mean we're always going to have the one we want in our waiting room when we trigger a gate. So this is just a little extra security. 1 copy of Draken and Mikey and Takemichi. On play and on death, pay 1, ditch 1, salvage. This is just, you know, utility. Helps us always get stuff out of our waiting room that we need. And it can do it twice. We can play it, get a card, and then attack with it, and if it dies, we get another card. Our early play also sacks a character on play, so it has really good synergy with this. We can play this, salvage an early play it, sack this, heal, salvage another early play that, the new empty slot, 'cause it's 4 or more condition. Yeah, it's just a cool utility card that I've, come to enjoy having access to. Our brainstorm of choice is founding member Baji. It's a rest self-search brainstorm, which I'm not a particularly big fan of, but this has extra text. The salvage brainstorm doesn't, and I think this extra text is decent. When you play a climax, give a character, when it reverses battle opponent, draw 1, discard 1. That's about it. Since it's a search brainstorm, it does also help us if we need to brainstorm early in the game, get our level 1 combos, since they might not be out of our deck yet. But otherwise, I think you can realistically swap this for any of the brainstorms in the set, and it's probably not going to change a whole lot. I've just chosen to play the search one in this list. As far as other cards we're playing, the early play healer that I mentioned is a pretty simple card. 4 or more characters, -1 level, and on play, sack a character, heal to stock. So this does only cost 1 stock, but you lose a character on board. There are some cards that synergize with this. In this deck, it's specifically the drop salvage. Otherwise, you're just sacking whatever your least valuable character on stage is. I like this only costing 1 stock, so that we can maintain resources for later in the game for our finishers. And it's cheap enough that we can play a defensive sort of compression heal-a-bunch game plan by using this and the Icy Tail as 7 healers, without needing to go into like the explosive finish if we don't need it. Playing 1 copy of Together Till the End, Baji and Kazutora. This is your standard level 3 killer. It gains 6,000 when it attacks a level 3. Difference is that this is slightly smaller than most, but has a second soul, meaning it's always a 1-cost 2-soul attacker, which is good for the aggression aspect of the deck. And 12,500 is still a pretty reasonable power line that's going to force counters against a lot of level 3s. And with a climax, that's 13,500, and our level 1 combo on play can pump it to 15,000 if we just play one to attack with. So I think this card's power lines are good enough to justify dropping 1,000 for the extra soul, especially since it means we can just attack with it as a 2-soul beater. We're playing 2 copies of Please Save Everyone Akun. I think you can cut this down to 1 if you want. I'm just playing 2 to make sure we always have it in the situations that we do need it. It's a 1/1 anti-change stock bomb. This is going to be good against decks with early plays that have Encore, or things that you just need to really remove off of board. And when it becomes reversed, if you have 2 or less memory, you can put this into your memory. That's just compression if you want it. It's just kind of tacked onto the card. We're really playing this because it's an anti-change bomb, and it removes opponent's characters with Encore. We also have Commander Mikey, which is more anti-change. It's a backup this time. It is a very small backup, so it's unlikely you're going to be winning lanes with it. But for discard 2, you can anti-change one of your opponent's characters to memory, which both prevents them from using Encore and prevents them from getting the card back from wherever you would remove it to, which I think is very good. It's the hardest form of removal in the game, really. It does give your opponent a minor bit of compression, but I don't think we really care that much about that. Our finishers are both pretty good against compression. And the 2 cards from hand, while it may seem like a pretty steep cost, you have to remember our Climax combo adds the top 4 cards of our deck if we hit. So if you're at max hand and you play this down to 4 hand, you're probably saving a lane because you anti-changed something. So that's 1 character you're not going to have to play back down. And then if you combo again the next turn, you should be able to get back up to 6 or 7 cards in hand without a whole lot of trouble. So I don't think the hand is really going to prove too much of a problem here. Again, this is a card that we're playing 2 copies of just because our selectivity isn't as great as it could be. So we'd like to definitely have access to it when it's important. This is really good against decks like Kanata, Rusha, some standby decks that are going to be cheating out important level 3s early. Sending your opponent's Nino level 3 once that releases to memory means they can't trigger it as a standby anymore. So just stuff like that. I think it's a pretty good card to have. A couple of other options you could consider. As I said, the Brainstorm can pretty much be any of the Brainstorms. I wouldn't particularly recommend the Emma just because check top 3 doesn't help our selectivity issue. But this does have another when you play a Climax effect that is maybe even better than the one I'm running currently. Look at top 2, put 1 on top, the rest in waiting room. If you don't want to trigger a Climax, you can trigger Clean, which is important. Or if you need to trigger a Climax, you can trigger it. So it just gives you control there. I just don't think the Brainstorm effect is as good for this deck specifically. This was the one we chose to run in the standby deck for the additional mill. Here, I think we have plenty of mill anyway. I would rather have selectivity. Speaking of selectivity, this is one of my favorite cards in the set. Birthday Present, Emma, and Draken. It's not just my favorite because it has Emma on it. On play, all of your opponent's characters in the center stage get minus 500 power until end of turn. This can help you get reverses at level 0, or just straight up remove some cards. A lot of really strong utility cards lately have been 500 power. And even if your opponent has to, or has like an on-death effect and they still get to resolve it, they have to choose a lot earlier whether they want to pay the cost. So in situations where your opponent plays a 500 power with, like, say, on death pay 1, clock yourself, you can force them to use that main phase, and that might send them to level 1 after your attacks with no stock, and could significantly hinder some of their setup. In a situation where they might not have used it otherwise, because they might have a better use for their stock. It's also a drop search, so that's selectivity. That's always going to get us a Mikey 1-0, or whatever other card we need. The other Brainstorm option is a Salvage Brainstorm with basically blank extra text. We don't play the Resonate target for the extra power. So this, if you want a Salvage Brainstorm, you just play this. Just a Scratch Baji is a replacement for My Treasure Baji if you really don't like how stock costed that card is. This does not plus, but it gives you the hand filter. I personally think My Treasure Baji is just way too important for the deck. You could try to fit this into some other slot if you wanted, if you just wanted the costless mill. And this card does, the first effect is not always great, but has some niche uses here and there. To blink a character to memory and back removes effects, like minus soul effects that are lingering, lingering power. If attack on Titans, Aaron gets good again, it removes Aaron's bounce back effect, etc. 5th Division Captain Mucho is more hand fix if you would rather play it than some of the other hand fix options we have. It's just on play, discard 1, reveal top card of your deck, salvage a level X or lower where it's the level of the revealed card. Our level split is pretty favorable for this card in the deck. A lot of our good utility that you would want to grab is level 0. And we play a pretty high number of level 3s, so you should be able to set up a finisher off of this, you know, a fair amount of the time. So I think this is a pretty solid card. At level 2, we have the option of Friends Starting Today, Takemichi, and Mikey. If you want to play this, I would replace one of the anti-change stock bombs. This is Global 500 and pay 1 rest this card to choose one of your opponent's level 1 or higher. They swap it with a lower level character from their waiting room. This is also just a good form of removal. They are still able to encore, unlike with the anti-change bomb, but this is repeatable across multiple turns, and it doesn't have to be anti-changing something. You know, if your opponent is at level 2 and has a problematic level 2, or at level 3 and has a problematic level 3, you can just try to remove it with this effect. Minusing level on your opponent's characters also opens up opportunities to side attack, potentially. Especially if your opponent doesn't have any good level 2s in their waiting room and turns like a 3 into a 1. Gives you really good opportunities to side attack, which provides a lot of protection for our Baji combo since it completely loses to things like memory counter. It also just lowers their power lines, right? They might have a 3-2 12k and their only level 2 is like a 3k, right? So they can't memory counter over you at that point anyway. So this might be really good protection for the level 3 Baji combo. More protection for Baji, actually. Bringing everyone together Mitsuya. This is one of the box topper promos. On attack, if you have 4 or more other revenge characters, you give a character +2 soul. And act, you can pay 1 to gain a soul. Which means you can control 2 of your lanes off of just this one card. And sort of pump them a bunch of soul so they can side attack around counters profitably. Like I said, this is protection for your level 3 Baji combo if you want to play it. And once again, more protection. These are just a lot of protection options if you really want to go into Baji. And these aren't bad for Mikey finisher either, since a lot of these are still going to save you from things like rest counter, anti-damage counter, etc. So you can play these even if you plan on going into Mikey more often. For this card, the assist ability isn't as important, other than it can scale you over memory kit counters. 2000 assist to your characters in front. It gives them pay 1, discard a revenge character when they're frontal attacked. They can't become reverse. That can stop some finishers, but in general, I don't think you're gonna need to use that a whole lot. Maybe if you go into Mikey, you can get multiple turns of Mikey combo by paying 1 and discarding to save them if you get the Climax back. And on play, look at top 3, put them back in any order, and bounce one of your opponent's characters. This gives you obviously a direct attack that your opponent can't counter, and if you find soul triggers, you can maybe line up a side attack where they also can't counter. So again, more protection from counter step is really good, and extra power is really good, and can like be pseudo encore for your Mikey finisher. Last character is Unwavering Loyalty Chifuyu. This is the stock swap. I kind of talked about this card in the standby deck as well. It's expensive. 3-2 on play, draw 2, ditch 2, blind stock 1. So he does only cost 1 to play, but his stock swap effect is on attack, pay 3. Meaning he's still 4 stock total if you want to stock swap, which just doesn't really line up with a lot of our finishers too well. Especially since both of our finishers are good against compression anyway, I don't think we particularly need this. It was more of a heavy consideration in a deck like the standby deck, where Climax's arm misses for our finisher. In this deck, if you really need a stock swap, you can play it, but I wouldn't recommend it. We do have enough red level 0s to color fix for it, though. Lastly, the moment he thought I'm dead. This is an event, so we can't grab it off of our level 1 combo. I'm also completely ignorant and forgot to put the effect on here. This is when you play it. We talked about the card in the last deck, so we played 2 copies. 3-4 event, discard 2, choose a character in battle, deal X to your opponent, and anti-damage. X is the character's soul. So you burn your opponent for their attacking damage. You basically reflect their attack back at them. It costs a lot of stock, a lot of hand, but as I've said, we're pretty low resource. We generate good resources. The Mikey finisher doesn't cost any additional stock, doesn't cost any additional hand other than just playing him. So this is a card you can reasonably play in the games where you choose to go defensive and just want to heal and use this. Especially if you've already played your Mikeys down and then gotten a chance to maybe trigger a Climax and get a hand back. And you've already attacked with some finisher stuff. This might just be able to kill your opponent. So this is a good card. The only issue with it is that it's a miss on basically all of our top checks. Mainly our level 1 combo is the important one. So be wary of that if you do choose to play it. And in conclusion, this is the deck list I'm going with. There are a lot of options you can change out here, especially some of the sort of anti-field based cards, like the anti-change counter, anti-change bomb, and a few of the utility options. The deck has a fair number of back row options, so feel free to condense those into whichever ones you find yourself using more. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this deck. You can find me at BoatsDon'tSink on Twitter, and you can check out our store, Iron City Games, on Facebook, or ironcitygames.tcgplayerpro.com, where we have singles and sealed product you can order. If you've tried out a similar deck to this, let me know. If you have any other ideas for decks you want me to take a look at, also post those. You can do that in the comments. You can like, subscribe, we'd appreciate it, and we will see you next time.